Drama responses are a funny thing in the world of e-celebrities. Looking through the history of the most infamous, it feels like they are almost guaranteed to be horrible and land the creator in an even worse spot than they started. Although there are a handful of exceptions, one of the best examples of this phenomenon would have to be Mizkif.
I'm ashamed that the situations got so bad, but Emmy was also violent. She would throw clothes or plushies at me, and I punched holes in the walls or slammed doors in aggression.
In October of 2025, Emiru, Mizkif's former girlfriend, went live and accused him of alleged domestic abuse, stalking, SA, and blackmail. This was a massive bombshell that sent the Twitch community into a frenzy, ultimately resulting in Mizkif losing half of his viewers, getting dropped from OTK, and people making fun of his clearly rushed, emotional response on stream.
And it is time to go full demon time.
Since then, Miz has been doing bizarre things, like faking a pregnancy scare, making a CGI video of himself as a Jedi Knight, and more importantly, has recently made an official legal response as well as accusations towards Asmongold that he had been flirting with Emiru. Now, it looks like a judge has sided with Mizkif, leading some people to switch sides and start defending him. Hi, I'm the Internet Anarchist. I create weekly YouTube documentaries, and today, we're going to dissect where Miz has been since these allegations dropped, his response, Emiru's response to his response, and, of course, Asmongold's response to Emiru's response to Mizkif's response. Has Mizkif vindicated himself, or did he just hammer the final nail in his coffin? Today, we'll be finding that out, and so much more. For those of you that don't know the context behind this situation, or maybe you do but you're fuzzy on the details since it's been so long, here's the briefest possible recap to get you up to speed. It'll be quick, I promise. Mizkif used to be one of the biggest streamers on Twitch, at his peak averaging around 30,000 live viewers, and sometimes even hitting 100,000. His biggest strength and large source of how he grew so large was the amount of collaborations he would do, hopping on stream with people like Ludwig, XQC, Pokimane, Tyler1, and the list could go on and on. However, this reliance on networking eventually contributed to his downfall. His reputation took a huge hit after his ex-girlfriend and massive streamer, Emiru, publicly spoke about their relationship and accused him of years of alleged controlling and behavior.
Today, I'm finally going to be opening up about the psychological and domestic stalking and threats of blackmail that Mizkif has done towards me, and some of these issues which are still ongoing.
She said they dated privately starting in 2022, and decided to come forward because she believed someone else had recently experienced similar behavior from him. She also claimed he had been threatening to ruin her reputation if she ever spoke out. According to Emiru, he allegedly controlled what she wore, who she spent time with, and even when she streamed. She said things gradually became more aggressive, with him throwing objects, punching holes in walls, slamming doors, and blaming his outbursts on her success whenever she got more viewers or attention than he did. She also accused him of threatening to end it all during arguments to manipulate her, and described one incident where he drove recklessly while angry and talking about ending his life. After they broke up, Emiru said he kept contacting her despite making it clear she wanted to move on. She also described a meeting they had after the breakup where she said he became physically intimate, and I'll let her say it herself because I don't want to get sued.
I let him hold me while I was crying, and he started kissing me in my face, and I let him do it. I was still sobbing a lot. And then, suddenly, he tried to climb on top of me and aggressively shoved his hand down my pants, and I screamed. And when I screamed, he jumped off me like a cat, And instead of apologizing or checking if I was okay, he said, "I feel weird now. I feel like I did something wrong. I have to go." And he immediately left my house while I was still crying.
She later said she was seeking a restraining order. A lot of people online started looking through old clips and screenshots that they believed backed up parts of her story, including images of a black eye, clips of Mizkif throwing things in past relationships, and videos showing holes in walls and angry outbursts. While not every accusation had direct proof, many people felt the older clips matched the behavior she described. Mizkif responded the same day by booting up a live stream, which is possibly the worst thing he could have done in this situation. He admitted the relationship was toxic and acknowledged that he punched walls, slammed doors, and struggled with his mental health, but denied intentionally hurting Emiru. He said he was trying to protect her, claimed many arguments happened while he was under extreme stress, and argued that both of them contributed to the relationship's problems. As shown in the intro, this is where the now infamous clip is from.
I'm ashamed that the situations got so bad, but Emmy was also violent. She would throw clothes or plushies at me, and I punched holes in the walls or slammed doors in aggression.
He also accused Emiru of neglecting her rabbits, showing pictures of what he describes are mites in the rabbit's cage. His response was widely criticized because many felt it focused on shifting the blame instead of taking responsibility. He later said drug use, steroids, depression, and therapy were factors in his behavior, but many questioned why those explanations came after his initial response. The controversy led to Mizkif being removed from OTK, and he later filed a defamation lawsuit against Emiru and Asmongold. Emiru for obvious reasons, and Asmongold most likely because he was the largest creator that says he was broadcasting these claims to the most amount of people. This has been what, like 5 minutes of recap? See, that wasn't so bad, was it? As the days turned into weeks and more videos covering the Mizkif situation were released, it felt like the case was already settled in the eyes of many people. Mizkif had been cancelled, and that was the end of it. For Mizkif though, it wasn't that simple. Despite losing over half of his viewership, he continued streaming. Over the following weeks, he carried on as if everything was business as usual, repeatedly telling his audience that he was doing mentally fine, and that he was still going to be in demon time.
How have you been doing these days? I'm great. Today, I did laundry for about 4 hours, went to the gym, went to the sauna. What else did I do? How's your mental? It's great. I'm not kidding you. It's great. I'm very confident and okay. Because I know that I will be okay. It's demon time. But the thing is with demon time, chat, people think demon time is one day. Demon time is not one day. Demon time is a lifestyle. It's long lasting and it will last years. That's what demon time is.
The problem is that constantly insisting you're doing fine usually has the opposite effect. It makes people think you're not actually okay, and you could see that reflected in his chat. Even after being cancelled, Miz was still averaging around 10,000 live viewers. That's an enormous audience by any standard. But there's another factor to consider. Overhead. It's reasonable to assume that Miz had built his business around a certain level of consistent income. Monthly earnings naturally fluctuate, but creators generally have a reliable average they can plan around. If you suddenly lose half your audience, those expenses don't disappear overnight. With his viewership cut in half, it's very possible that his operating costs exceeded what he was bringing in, leaving him in the red. So what do you do when you've lost a massive portion of your audience? In Mizkif's case, he came up with a spur-of-the-moment idea. He announced that he had a girlfriend.
Yo, I want to make this video to show you guys why I haven't been streaming and why I haven't been live lately. I've actually got a girlfriend, and I don't want to hide her from you, so I'd rather show you guys who she is. So, yeah, I'm going to show you and show who she is today. Her name is Juice. Juice.
The announcement generated attention, but most of the reaction was confusion. Many people weren't even sure if it was serious or just another joke. Considering his already damaged reputation when it came to women, a lot of viewers questioned why he would make something like this public in the first place, even if it were to be true. The attention didn't seem to move the needle enough though. Then, on December 12, Miz announced that he had gotten this woman, Juice, pregnant. Once again, the response was overwhelmingly confused and negative. People questioned whether the story was real or simply another attempt to get news outlets talking about him. It turned out to be the latter. A few days later, Miz admitted on stream that the entire story had been fabricated, specifically to attract media attention. As it turns out, he wasn't even dating the woman. The whole thing was a publicity stunt. As I mentioned earlier, it seems pretty clear that the financial pressure was starting to catch up with him. Between the 2 lawsuits he was involved in and everything else happening behind the scenes, he likely needed a way to bring in more money. So, on December 15, he announced that he would be leaving Twitch permanently and moving to Kick. The announcement was accompanied by an absurdly high-budget video of him dressed as a Jedi, running around and cutting people down with a lightsaber. It's honestly kind of hilarious.
Mizkif, it's time you fulfill the prophecy. It's time you joined the dark side.
The reaction was once again mostly negative. Many viewers called it cringe, while others focused on something much more significant. Just a few months earlier, in June 2025, Miz had publicly said that he would never join Kick in a million years. More specifically, he claimed that the site's owner made him want to do bad things to himself. For years, Miz had taken a strong public stance against gambling content. He was one of the biggest voices pushing for gambling streams to be banned on Twitch. Now, he was joining the very platform most closely associated with gambling and stake, the online casino that helped fund Kick. To many viewers, even the ones that took his side during the Emiru drama, this felt like Mizkif was selling his soul, even if it was to partly fund his defamation lawsuits. Months passed with not much happening until July 7th when Mizkif uploaded Emiru Lied Part 1. Right from the get-go, you can tell this is what he should have responded with initially instead of his impromptu livestream. In his response, Mizkif argues that Emiru's public allegations against him are misleading and leave out key context. Throughout the video, he repeatedly says that he is presenting his side of the story alongside court filings and publicly available records, which I'll leave a link to so you can view them for yourself and have the full context. One of the first points Mizkif makes is about Emiru allegedly telling her audience that she was in the process of filing restraining orders against him in both Texas and California. According to Mizkif, no restraining order was ever filed. He argues that restraining orders are matters of public record, and says that even roughly 8 months after those statements were made, there is still no evidence that one exists in either state. He uses that to argue that her public statements do not match what actually happened.
I am already in the process of filing a restraining order on him in both Texas and California.
20 months have now passed since the alleged incident without a single criminal complaint, restraining order, or investigation appearing in any record in California or Texas. The only active case arising from any of this is my defamation lawsuit that I brought against her. The total absence of any official action over a year and a half stands in stark contrast to the severity of what she accused me of. When she finally did raise it, a full year after the date, she points to, it was not to the police. It was an audience of millions on a live stream.
Mizkif also focuses on Emiru's allegations that he essayed her. He says that although she publicly described the incident as essay, her legal team later argued in court that her statements reflected her emotional truth rather than a literal statement of fact. According to Mizkif, he believes that distinction is significant because emotional truth is different from accusing someone of committing a crime, and he argues that this change in language undermines the certainty of her original public accusations.
She said, and I quote, "Her story is admirable, and in telling it, she is stating her emotional truth, not some statement of decisive fact." My attorneys answered that with one line. Emotional truth is not a recognized defense to defamation in Texas. And this is not just my side spin on her defense. The magistrate judge, restating Shunk's own motion in her own words, described it in exactly those terms. She also argues that her statement, considered in its entirety, was an opinion or her protected emotional truth. The judge did not buy it on the part that matters the most. Vague feelings about a relationship can be protected opinion. But falsely accusing someone of sexual assault, the judge held, is different because those words can only mean one thing, that I committed a crime.
Another point Mizkif raises is that Emiru allegedly left out what happened after the incident she describes. According to him, the encounter she references was not the final time they were together. He says they continued seeing each other, continued communicating, and allegedly hooked up multiple times afterward, with their relationship continuing on and off until their final breakup in January 2025.
And here is what does not fit an assault. We kept dating for months afterward. Her own messages, laid out in the next two sections, show her coming over, cooking me dinner, asking to sleep together, calling me babe, messaging me, "Merry Christmas, babe." When it ended in January 2025, I was the one who walked away, and she is the one who did not want to split up.
Mizkif also disputes Emiru's allegations that he stalked her after their breakup. According to him, he intentionally distanced himself by traveling to Japan shortly after they separated, later returning only briefly before leaving again, and eventually moving to Los Angeles. He even includes a timeline of the alleged events, arguing that these actions are inconsistent with stalking another person. He also points to the same lack of any restraining order as something he believes contradicts those allegations. Regarding the specific incident Emiru allegedly described as stalking, Mizkif says he had been invited to a friend's house after returning from Japan. He claims he opened a door during a tour of the house, noticed several OTK members sitting inside, immediately closed the door, and walked away. According to Mizkif, that brief interaction was later characterized as stalking, something he strongly denies.
I have never talked to her in person since. I have been removed from OTK Discords. I did see her at a party once, at Simply's house, one of my close friends. The house was very small and I opened the door. I said, "Whoops, I want to make it very clear I was not following her. It just happened that I was with someone she knew the entire night. The house is about 2,000 square feet with about 50 people. I, of course, was near her, but I was never following her." The specific incident she calls stalking is a party. Here's how she described it on her own stream from the certified transcript she filed herself. "I made the mistake of thinking that I only had to cut him off through personal private communication, but I also had to start avoiding going to the same parties or places I was worried he'd be. There was a party that I attended. I was aware that he would be there and I thought it wouldn't be a big deal. We're adults, right? During this party, I felt like he was following me around and monitoring me, but I thought that was just being paranoid. About 30 minutes later, the room that we're in, the door opens, it's Miz. He opens the door, makes eye contact with me, goes ooh, and closes the door and leaves. That is the entirety of her stalking allegations.
Finally, Mizkif addresses the implication that he physically abused Emiru after she appeared with a black eye. He says the only incident that ever caused the injury was an accident in which he tossed his phone onto his bed. It bounced unexpectedly and struck her near the eye. According to Mizkif, it was completely unintentional. He apologized immediately, and he stopped throwing his phone after that. He argues that the injury was later presented in a way that allegedly suggested abuse, despite, in his view, being nothing more than an accident.
When a friend asked her directly whether something had given her the black eye, she answered that it was not intentional and called the whole thing a funny story that she would explain later. Verbatim, "Did someone knock you out, Emily?" Emiru said, "Not intentionally. I got a black eye a week or two and it's finally almost gone. It's a long story, but funny as fuck. LOL, I'll DM you later." There was never a police report. There is nothing in any record from that time that treats this as an abuse in calls, text messages, or anything that me and Emiru had. It was not called intentional abuse until 3 years later when Emiru went live. The bruise never changed.
The biggest bombshell that Miz reveals during this video is that the judge recommended the case move forward.
But what changed is that in June 2026, a federal judge reviewed her request to throw my entire case out and recommended the opposite, that it moves forward.
When this video first came out, the initial reaction from people who actually watched it was surprisingly positive. It seemed like Mizkif had put together a compelling case for himself, and might have even been starting to shift public opinion back in his favor. Even other creators appeared to agree.
I hate Mizkif, objectively he is right. A lot of his points are genuinely valid, and there are inconsistencies in Emiru's story. It doesn't matter what you think about Mizkif. Nobody should be accused of a crime under the guise of emotional truth.
XQC's girlfriend called Emiru's actions silly, and Destiny commented that, in his opinion, it felt like Emiru was lying. Then, Mizkif completely fumbled the momentum. The very next day, he tweeted, "Hey at Asmongold, you gonna react to your queen Emiru's 48 minutes of lies? Or do you wanna keep hitting on her saying how cool you are for using the N-word as passwords at 33 years old? Emiru sent this to me in a screenshot years ago. Attached to the tweet was what appeared to be a screenshot of DMs between Asmongold and Emiru, in which Asmongold seemingly showed that his password was the N-word. I genuinely have no idea why he thought posting this was a good idea, even if he had been completely right about what he thought the screenshots showed. It completely backfired. For starters, before either Asmongold or Emiru responded, most of the replies didn't seem to care at all. If anything, people thought it was funny. Some were even jokingly calling Asmongold based, and referring to Emiru as a quote, based right-wing chud. Second, people immediately pointed out the hypocrisy. Replies began circulating screenshots of Mizkif himself using the N-word in DMs with friends. Finally, and most importantly, the screenshots were missing almost all of their context. The following day, Emiru posted the full conversation, showing what had actually been discussed. According to the screenshots, they were talking about a particularly notorious viewer who would constantly spam the N-word in chat, using random combinations of letters, numbers, and even Egyptian hieroglyphs to bypass filters. At first, Asmongold said he couldn't respond because he was being sued for defamation by Mizkif. A few days later, however, that lawsuit was dropped, allowing him to address everything publicly. On stream, he essentially confirmed the same explanation Emiru had already given, and pointed out the irony that Mizkif was trying to sue him for defamation while spreading baseless screenshots. That wasn't the only thing Asmongold talked about though. Later in stream, he brought up that Mizkif had openly admitted to encouraging people to watch his videos by paying them. He also said Mizkif had created a Chrome extension that viewers could install to generate quote tickets, which could apparently be exchanged for money.
What the f? So you have to watch? What? So this is like an ad campaign? It's happening again. I updated the extension, but oh my god.
This wasn't just speculation. I went into Mizkif's Discord server myself and verified that the system does in fact exist. When you combine that with the large number of comments that were supposedly deleted by accident from the original video, it starts to paint a familiar picture. Rather than simply letting his evidence and legal arguments speak for themselves, Mizkif once again seems determined to control the narrative surrounding his content. Whether intentional or not, it gains gave his critics even more ammunition and distracted from what had initially been a surprisingly effective presentation of his case. You may be asking yourself, what does Mizkif's stream look like today? Well, clicking on his most recent stream, and it starts with him playing slots on stake. Then he jumps over to Twitter, watches people he once considered friends, stares at chat looking visibly angry, and then goes right back to gambling. It's honestly a pretty sad state of affairs. This might be one of the most depressing streams I've ever watched. For almost the entire stream, Mizkif is just gambling, while the only real interaction from chat is people asking about the drama. He's even said recently that he hasn't seen his family in months, and that he couldn't visit them for Christmas.
Like, I didn't go home for Christmas because I just didn't want, not that I think they would like, say anything about it, but I just didn't want them to like have it in the back of their head or me feel weird about it, so I just didn't want to go home and even see my family.
Compare that to the upbeat, energetic personality he had in his older streams, and the difference is night and day. He genuinely feels like a completely different person now. It's almost unrecognizable. The biggest obstacle Mizkif faces right now is himself. He actually had an opportunity to turn public opinion in his favor, and to some extent, that was already starting to happen. But he just can't seem to get out of his own way. Instead of letting people hear him out, he insists on being as vindictive as possible. On top of that, he paid viewers to artificially boost engagement on his video, which completely undermines his credibility before people even have a chance to listen to what he has to say. Whether or not he will be able to prove his case or not is up for debate, and only time will tell. He still has yet to post a part 2 of his video, and this may shed more light on details that were not elaborated on further. Speaking of YouTubers trying to make a comeback, EDP445 was just unbanned from YouTube by accident, and now he seems to be making a comeback. Click the video on screen to find out more.